Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to Market Mondays. Hopefully, you guys had a great week. Today, we're going to be talking about the 2-1 buy down, how the numbers work, how it plays out, and if it's actually an advantage or not, depending on the situation. So, before we get started, we're going to do right to our dead joke. Did you hear about the semicolon that got arrested recently? Semicolon got arrested recently. It was given two consecutive sentences. Two consecutive sentences. Pew, pew. All right. So getting right into it, the 2-1 buy down program, VA, conventional, FHA, all have it, right? So essentially, how the math works is that let's say right now average mortgage interest rates is about 7.5%. Okay. With a 2-1 buy down, the first 12 months, the client will pay 2% less than the market rate as of today, which is their rate will be 5.5, and that's what their payment will be based off. The following 12 months, the interest rate is now 1% less than the current market rate of 7.5, which now will be 6.5, right? And then the third year, it'll go back to what the market rate when they first did the loan. Now, between that time, they can refinance. It could be an option for them to refinance and then be able to pay it off. But one of the things that we have to go into is like, is it an advantage for your clients? And if it's a good option right now, knowing that what's going to happen in the future. So I'm going to give you guys a chart, and that way you guys can kind of play around with this. So let's imagine a $500,000 purchase, and I'm going to assume PITI. I just assume taxes and insurance being about $350 a month, and insurance being about $125. So that gives us a PITI of $39.71 for a $500,000 house in a normal VA purchase. Okay, there's no 2-1 buy down. With a 2-1 buy down, with a $500,000 purchase with PITI, the first year payment is about $3,300 a month, the difference being $658. And then you have your second year PITI, which is about $336 less than $39.71. And then the third year will go back to the normal PITI then, assuming property taxes and home insurance stay the same, with the starting interest rate at 7.5. Now, this looks really attractive. I'm not going to lie. I would love to pay the first year with $658 less. One of the things we do have to note is that when we qualify the client, we have to base it off the 7.5% starting rate. Okay, can't do it based on the smaller rate. We have to do it based on the starting rate. So for normal VA purchase, it'll stay fixed to pretty much the entire time, 7.5. 2-1 buy down, we'll start with 2% less than this, 1% less than this the next year, and then it go back to normal starting rate. Now, one of the things that has to be considered is that the buy down cost. Does it make sense? So for the buy down cost, how that's calculated is, if we look over here at the difference, is that we take the savings in the first year times 12 and saving in the second year times 12, and we sum it all up together. And that's the amount of total savings in those first 2 years. Unfortunately, those first 2 years of savings is actually a cost added on top of the normal closing cost as well, which means this buy down cost is actually the same number as these two numbers combined, and is in addition to the normal closing costs. Another thing to note is that the seller must pay this amount. It's at a minimum. So the seller at a minimum must pay this amount, which is a lot. So one of the things we have to consider is that, okay, if the sellers want to pay $12,000, what is remaining left to figure out for the client? So the next thing we have to figure out is that the remaining closing costs after the buy down is about $17,000, right? Just a little over. At that moment, we can be renegotiated with the seller. You can pay a little. They can pay a little bit more. They can pay 15, maybe 20, or something like that. But even at the end of the day, the client's still responsible for this remaining amount if the seller is not willing to pay it. So, does it make sense? So let's put in a scenario where, regardless of the situation, the seller is going to give $12,000 at closing cost. So if we put in the remaining $12,000 for a seller credit on top of this normal VA purchase, the remaining portion that the buyer has to handle is about $3,400 in comparison to $17,000, right? So that's a lot easier to handle, even for a seller. It's a lot easier to handle if they wanted to pay all of their closing costs and potentially buy the house for free. Now, here's the balance that we have to strike: cash out of pocket, savings on the monthly payment, right? In regards to cash out of pocket, obviously the normal VA purchase seems a little more superior. And the 2-1 buy down, the monthly payment seems more superior. So how do we determine what makes the most sense? So let's just look at it. I would say this program is an amazing program for if we didn't expect interest rates to go down next year. So with that in mind, what could happen is that why not, if the seller on a normal VA purchase is willing to save $12,000, what the client can do is set aside the $8,000 that they're saving in the first year on the 2-1 buy down. Maybe match this number. So put this $8,000 in a reserve account somewhere, right? Once that is in a reserve account, it'll help supplement the mortgage a little bit. And then when they're able to refinance for a much, much better rate, they can release that reserve funds and they didn't have to spend it in the first place, or, it would save them a lot more money. So it's a matter of like balancing a strike between, the cash savings and between the monthly payment and the closing costs. So I would say this is a great program if we didn't expect interest rates to go down maybe the second year, but knowing that it's probably going to go down next year. I'm not sure if it's a great program for a lot of buyers. It just depends on the situation. Some of them are cash, have a lot of cash, and some are happy to pay that amount, that remaining amount, to get that $658 savings up front. And this could be an option for different types of clients, regardless of timeline. So that's something that we can consider. But these are options that we bring up for our clients. Most times they realize if they can just save the $8,000 and just allocate more to that closing cost, maybe they don't have to pay like $3,400 a month, $3,400 to buy the house. They can have that money set aside, wait about 7 mortgage payments, refinance. And then that money is still there. The $8,000 that they were setting aside is still available for them to use for whatever they want. I would have them just set it aside, not use it until they've refinanced, and then be able to move forward in that direction. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense with the 2-1 buy down program. Again, it's all about a balance and what the client is capable of doing. So that's about all I got for you guys. Hopefully this made sense. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I'm here to help out any way I can. That's all I got. Nuke out.